I'm going to read Kelly's question here.
Nice.
My studio currently has 120 students, two teachers, and two TAs. So
Hmm.
Kelly's actually running the Piano Express program. That's one of the sponsors of this
Oh,
podcast. Just go to grouplessons.com. You can learn all about it. It is a revolutionary group curriculum that is really easy to set up in your studio, very easy to train your teachers to run it for you or run it yourself, whether you're in a small studio or a big commercial studio space. And what Kelly's saying here is my goal is to double this, but I'm growing faster than I can keep up with. I don't want to slow my growth, so I'm looking for resources to get my systems in order like now so I can continue to provide a quality experience to families and staff. I'm struggling with scheduling, being responsive to families, and payroll. And I really appreciate that you specifically wrote down the systems that you're struggling with, because that really helps us to focus in on what to talk about versus guessing. So struggling with scheduling, responsive to families, and payroll. Nate, do you want to jump on any of those to begin with?
responsive to families. Yep. Kelly, I'm gonna give you a tactic we're testing out at BMF right now. Okay. And I like to keep it all lo-fi, so just a Google sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I've got a new salesperson coming on who's supporting Jessica, who's not only my wife, but also basically runs the whole program and enrolls everyone. So she's really running BMF, and she's our main salesperson, but she can't do it alone anymore. Right? She absolutely needs a sales team with her. And so we've brought on another teacher who's doing sales part time when she's not teaching voice piano lessons. But Jessica's not really a trainer in sales systems, right? She's been doing it for a long, long time. She's busy, so she's not really in a position to be training Natalie in sales. So what I've developed for Natalie is a simple, what I call um, a touch point spreadsheet, 7 touch points. And basically, left to right, it just says, okay, over on the left, I want you to put the new lead, the parent contact information with the phone number. And then each column is just like email, phone call. From a phone call you pull down, did you talk to them or did you leave a voicemail? Next email, next email. As they move through that sales system, as I move through the touch points, I'm asking Natalie to update every cell. So then it's like email and then text. Did you send a text follow up after you sent that email? Hey, in case you didn't see my email, just wanted to give you the link to pay the deposit. The point is, Kelly, is that all I'm trying to do with Natalie is get her to find a consistent, repeatable system where she's reaching out and having 7 touch points with every new lead, right? It's a combination of email, phone, text. And the reason why I want her to do that is not only because it's an essential sales practice, it's essential to following up consistently, but it's way easier for her to just open up the spreadsheet and be like, okay, I sent the third email, but I haven't texted yet, right? By the way, the last cell of that row is just, did you win or lose the lead, right? Win or lost. That's it. So, but really what we're trying to do, and I'm setting up a meeting with her in like 2 to 3 weeks, is we're looking for trends. Back to your comment, Kelly, I'm struggling with follow up. Well, you're struggling with follow up because you're probably looking at each family as an individual case study. They're not. They're just a parent who needs information and needs consistent communication from you or somebody else. So you're looking, eventually I'm going to sit down and I'm looking at this spreadsheet. There'll be like 30 or 50 leads over on the left. And I'm going to look at what she did and we're going to look at which converted and which didn't. And we're going to look for trends in her actions. Oh, turns out if you always text after an email or always text after a voicemail, you have a higher likelihood of enrolling this family. And so that's all I'm going to open with, Daniel, is just a simple system to ensure that you have enough touch points with every new lead that you either win or lose them at the end of it. But you're not making it up case by case. Daniel, what do you got?
I was just going to ask Kelly for this is one of those questions where it's really in the nuances. So, Kelly, if you feel comfortable, and I can cut this out if not, maybe push back on that a little bit. Like, what would your next question be about that,
Mm.
or what would what would your natural follow up be to that?
I'm actually having more trouble being responsive to my current families. I have a
Oh, dang it.
spreadsheet it doesn't work great. It's color coded and it's kind of a mess. It needs to be caught up. I did Daniel's marketing course some years ago. So
Mm.
I've got an onboarding sheet. It's more now that I've got so many students and I'm teaching all the time. Parents are coming in, they're asking me questions. I'm trying to teach. They're sending me a lot of emails. They're texting me. I'm emailing them. They don't read the emails.
No,
Hmm.
no, they
I was
don't.
I was just listening to the podcast about is my job to nag my teachers? And I immediately thought, is it my job to nag my families? And so I'm
Yes.
enjoying the podcast. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm getting some good tips in there.
Interesting. So I think, what are you hoping will happen?
I'm hoping you say, I have enough students, I can hire an admin person. That's what I'm
Interesting.
hoping.
Yeah. And what would you want the admin person to do for you?
Sit in the room that I'm sitting in right now, which is looking out into my waiting room, and on my busy days, take care of all those things for me.
Interesting.
And I want the algorithm that says when you are making this much money and when you're netting this much, you can afford an admin person.
Interesting.
Mm.
The
Okay.
teaching I love, the money I don't love the money part.
Mm.
Yes. Okay. So I don't think there's any one number. I think you're right in thinking, what's the formula? Because what I would say is this, and this, look, this is a little bit unorthodox, but I had a personal family budget, right? And anything over that, I got to do whatever I wanted to do with that money, right? And so for me, when my studio, because I was teaching group lessons, when I got over a certain number of students, we didn't really adjust our lifestyle up. I was just making the extra money. And so what I did was put it into better equipment. And then at a certain point, I just said, well, like you know, I spend this many hours every month on invoicing. I spend this many hours every month, like onboarding or offboarding students. Like it is a process. If I do this really well, I spend this many hours every month keeping track of data within the studio. I spend this many hours every month. Well, not hours, but this amount of time, like just even calling in the Faber 411 number to order books. And so my thought was, how many hours is that? And is there a person out there that is looking for a job where maybe it isn't even part-time, maybe it isn't even quarter time, where they're literally just looking for 20 or 30 hours a month because that's all I need? Now, I chose to do this virtually, where that, a virtual position. If you have someone that you want to be in there that can just sit the desk, so to speak, then you're going to need to budget for that differently. And my recommendation would be to figure out what that number is, figure out the minimum number of days that you want them in there. And if that number is acceptable to you, I think you move forward on it. I think one of the things I regret, and I put that in quotes a little bit because I don't believe in regrets, but I think I regret waiting as long as I did to have an admin for my studio. I had the money to do it way before I actually did it. I think I just waited too long. I think the thing that held me back was I didn't think there would be someone who only wanted to work 4 or 5 hours a week for me. That was my mistake. But there are people out there that's all they're looking to do, and I had a virtual admin. It sounds like you want something a little bit different, but I know
Yeah.
how much happier I got when I literally was just like, I have lessons starting at 3:20 p.m. and I started thinking about the studio at 3:15 p.m., not at 1 or noon. And then when I was done at night, 7:35, maybe I had one or two follow-up emails I needed to send because I wrote a note down during the lesson time, follow up with this kid's parent for this reason. Like I noticed this in the lesson, or student had a little bit of trouble focusing today, just wanted to follow up on that sort of thing. And that was it. That was the extent of it. And I had just slowly but surely systematized everything that I was doing in the studio and handed it off to Alicia, who I've mentioned before in the podcast. So thoughts on that? Is that helpful?
It is. Yes, thank you.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, Kelly, the Alicia story is a great one because Daniel's so good at like being crystal clear about, he has this, I think you've talked about it before, Daniel, the sort of his system he follows, which is definition of done. So it's like simple. I've seen these just simple GDocs. Like, this is what it looks like to answer this type of question from a parent. This is your response. This is our school calendar. Because the thing about Daniel's story that I think is so important, Kelly, and it probably resonates with you because it resonates with me. I don't have any problem like sending home that email to the parent with a video of my student sharing a couple of nuances from within the classroom. The problem I have is answering questions around when the next songwriting party is, or if the school's closed, or all these, or billing. Like, I don't want to answer any of that stuff. You want to know why? Because I really don't actually care about it. I just care about your kid. I just want to work on educating your child, which gets back to Daniel's point. Yes, he would write emails at the end of the day, but they would always be referencing in-class experiences. Mm-hmm. So systemizing the answers, I mean, a great place to start, Kelly, is just look at all the emails in your box. What are the questions being asked? Make a 10 frequently asked question. You write the answers. Yeah. And the last thing I was going to say to Daniel's point is oftentimes parents of your students are a great first place to start for very part-time work. Mm. That's a great you'd be surprised. There's some, maybe a stay-at-home parent who's like, yeah, I love what you do. I would totally answer emails for you. I'll even process billing.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And just sending out an internal email. Hey, we're hiring, it's awesome.